the ATF decided, you know what, we need to make an example out of this person. So they came in for a random compliance inspection, and they tore the shop completely apart. They wanted to see everything that was in the books, so we made sure that we showed them everything. Later, they decided to get back with me and said, "Oh no, well, we're revoking your license." I don't mind giving up the FFL. I do mind giving up the names and addresses of all of the people, all of the 4,883 transfers that I have done in the 12 years that I have been a gun dealer in the city of Toledo. And the bad thing is, there has been a 500% increase in revocations of licenses during Comrade Biden's administration. 500% increase in revocations. So they make it sound really promising for the dealer. Oh, if you don't want any trouble, just give us all of your records, give us all your background check forms, give us all of your bound books, and we'll leave you alone. I really don't trust the people that brought you Ruby Ridge and Waco to leave anyone alone. I mean, our FBI and our ATF have become this country's black and tans. For those of you that understand your Irish history, they're a semi-autonomous paramilitary law enforcement organization that is not held accountable to anyone.
Now, besides gold, silver, food, and water, it's never been a better time to make sure you're armed and stocked up on ammo. But of course, our authoritarian government continues to oppress gun dealers. Many have been shut down. It might be harder for you to get your hands on a handgun or an ammo. Like my next guest, he's been certainly harassed. The last time we had him on, we had to conceal his identity. He was appropriately worried about more harassment from an ATF, which we all know the story of Waco. So definitely warranted to be worried to show his face as he was being harassed by the ATF. But in light of new developments, he's showing his face today. But we're going to just stick with his first name. Bruce has been a federal firearms licensee holder since 2011, but he's been in an ongoing battle with the ATF under the Biden regime. And this despite his service to the country. He did 20 years in the Air National Guard, most of which is as a military police officer, 3 years with a local sheriff's office, and more. So thanks for coming back on with me and giving us an update, Bruce. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And this time you're not the shadowy and Anon figure, but I understood why you were concerned at the time. So for those that maybe didn't catch that show, I guess try and as briefly as you can take us through what happened.
Briefly, I have problems with that.
I know. I'll do your best.
But
do your best. We have some.
I had a random compliance inspection over a year ago. A compliance inspection where if you're a gun dealer, the ATF can come in whenever they see fit, go over your books and over your inventory, and decide whether they want to shut you down or not. They'll examine all of your paperwork, all of your books, because every gun that comes in has you log the thing in, and then you fill out the background check paperwork, and then it gets logged back out. And we were doing quite a few transfers, especially after COVID and things like that. We had a theft of 2 firearms from the shop last summer, and the ATF decided, you know what, we need to make an example out of this person. So they came in for a random compliance inspection, and they tore the shop completely apart, trying to find, because we deal mainly in older antique firearms, and but they wanted to see everything that was in the books, so we made sure that we showed them everything. And the way that it's explained in the ATF handbook for FFLs is a compliance inspection will not take any longer than 2 weeks to avoid causing any undue complications or hindrance of the business of the FFL. Well, they took about 2.5 months and told me in October, because my inspection was in August, they told me in October, hey, we're revoking your license because you flagrantly flagrantly and knowledgeably disregarded the background check system on 12 occasions, and you were losing your license because of such. I had to ask, well, what do you mean? I flagrant. I mean, there's a 4473 for every book. That is those of you who don't know, that is the background check paperwork, because we are very libertarian minded here in the shop, and we believe in using the paper forms, because those digital forms, if you've ever filled out a digital 4473, it asks for things like the make, model, and serial number of the firearm. When they're doing a background check on the person, they don't need that information to do a background check on the person, and they refuse to admit with what they're doing with that information. So we still use the paper forms, where they don't ask for things like that, and all of that information is stored on the paper form that has to
Right.
stay with the dealer.
And so, Bruce, let's
So,
pause
yes,
there. Let's pause there for one moment because this is really, I think, important. So basically, as you described it to me before, we went to this essentially digital system to do the background checks, and it was sold to gun dealers. It's just way more convenient, fulfill this obligation, and people could do this digitally. But the motivation that you were concerned about is that through this new digital service, it was another grab
mhm.
attempt to keep a record of who owns firearms and who doesn't in a quick manner, which is something that we've been resisting because it's our Second Amendment right. And if the government knows who has the guns, then when they decide to round them up, this just makes it easier for them. So I just wanted to make that point clear because that was very interesting to me last time,
Oh, yeah.
that many gun dealers are like, well, this is more convenient, I'll do the digital, but then you're aiding the government and the ATF in collecting this list that they can use for nefarious reasons in the future. So you were doing the paper version. And again, explain to me how that was like you felt a greater degree of protection for those that wanted to get their firearm.
When the Brady bill went down, and they instituted the background check system, they were originally asking for things like make, model, and serial number of the firearm when you would call in the background check. And somebody in the higher reaches in the NRA ILA, which are the NRA's trained attack dog lawyers, had asked them, "What are you doing with this information?" They said, "Oh, well, we're establishing a database." Oh, like hell you are. So in the FBI funded call center, which does all the background checks, and all they will ask after that point, when the NRA sued them, or at least threatened to sue them, the only thing they ask for is it a long gun, handgun, or other, meaning they don't ask for make, model, serial number, or anything like that. And then every 25 to 35 days, there is an NRA lawyer that is watching the FBI data chief or whoever is running the call center delete those records that a John M. Smith, who lives at 123 Any Place Lane, et cetera, purchased a handgun on this date. And that is purged every month. Well, now with this new digital system, all tyranny in the sake of convenience, I guess you could say, is they know that you've bought that firearm ahead of you. And that also leads me into the other thing, which unfortunately, look, what has happened since then is I had my tribunal before the ATF. And I had to fight to get that, because originally they weren't even going to they were going to deny me my due process, because I requested a hearing, because the agent made it sound really good. Oh, just give up your records, and within 5 years you can apply for another FFL, and you won't have any problems. Or you can go out of business and sell off all your inventory, and then you won't be able to have an FFL ever again. Or you can go before or you can have I refer to as a tribunal, but they claim it's a
Yeah.
friendly, informal hearing. Well, my friendly, informal hearing, they had to call in a moderator from St. Paul, Minnesota. They had a stenographer on Skype. They had an observer from Washington, D.C. They had the head of Ohio Industry Operations, the head of Ohio ATF Law Enforcement, both agents doom and gloom who didn't even know what the heck a Mauser was and claimed to have been with the ATF for over a decade. And my lawyer and myself were here at this friendly, I'm sorry, friendly tribunal that was held on the fifth story of an office building outside of Cleveland. So yes, and they said, and they told me flat out, oh well, because I was also not only being hung up because I flagrantly disregarded the background check system by accepting law enforcement credentials in the federally recognized LEOSA credentials instead of an Ohio CCW permit. Oh no, I flagrantly disregarded the background check system. And they said, well, you also transferred guns to people with an expired CCW. Well, is I don't have to tell anybody that has a CCW permit that expired anywhere in 2020 or 2021 on how big of a pain in the royal bleep it was to get that renewed when the sheriff's offices deemed the CCW bureau as non-essential, and the state of Ohio issued extensions onto said carry permits, which were good in lieu of a background check. They claimed, looking me straight into the face, that, oh no, well, we're not required to keep up on state laws. Hmm. Interesting. Yet they claim that we're all of all of the gun dealers are required to keep up on federal laws, which they change capriciously and do not inform you that they have changed the laws. But they claim that they're available if you look for them on the ATF website somewhere. So they said that they would get back with me because they didn't know about the Ohio CCW extension. And well, that was supposed to be the Wednesday following my tribunal, which was when I gave my initial interview. Well, 2.5 months later, they decided to get back with me and said, "Oh no, well, we're revoking your license." I don't mind giving up the FFL. I do mind giving up the names and addresses of all of the people, all of the 4,883 transfers that I have done in the 12 years that I have been a gun dealer in the city of Toledo. And the bad thing is, there has been a 500% increase in revocations of licenses during Comrade Biden's administration. 500% increase in revocations. So they make it sound really promising for the dealer. Oh, if you don't want any trouble, just give us all of your records, give us all your background check forms, give us all of your bound books, and we'll leave you alone. I really don't trust the people that brought you Ruby Ridge and Waco to leave anyone alone. I mean, our FBI and our ATF have become this country's black and tans. For those of you that understand your Irish history, they're a semi-autonomous paramilitary law enforcement organization that is not held accountable to anyone. They don't enforce laws. They enforce edicts, which are purely internal. I have broken no laws. I have broken some of their arbitrary rules that I have to abide by if I wish to keep my license. Well, I no longer have a license as of 2 days ago. So it's been a very interesting last couple of months. They have figured out how to take a 2-week time frame compliance inspection to take a year and a half. So it's been a less than enjoyable experience.
Yeah, but you were able to hold strong in not having to give over the documents, or did you still have to give over documents?
I still have to, because when that's actually part of they claim that all of my paperwork is part of the tracing data. Whenever a firearm is recovered by law enforcement at the scene of a crime, there are two things that are required to be on a firearm since the Gun Control Act in 1968 went into place. One is a make and model of the firearm or an importer, and the other one is a serial number. Before 1968, you weren't required to have any of that on the side of a firearm. But when a firearm is recovered by law enforcement, it is turned over to the FBI, or at least the data that is on the firearm is turned over to the FBI, and the FBI will start, say, if they find a Smith & Wesson VE series, serial number 123. Okay, the first thing that the FBI will do is they will contact Smith & Wesson. It was like, hey, we have a Smith & Wesson VE series, serial number 123. Where'd it come from? Where'd it go? They will look it up at Smith & Wesson, which has a similar large bound book. They'll pull up and it's like, okay, that was manufactured in 2006. That was part of a lot of 1,000 we sold to Bud's Gun Shop. They will then call Bud's Gun Shop. Bud's Gun Shop will pull it up in their records. Okay, that was a lot of 3 that was sold to Old Trooper Gunsmiths in July of 2020. Then I will get a call from the FBI, the FBI Research Center. Hey, we have a Smith and Wesson VE series pistol, serial number 123. Who'd you sell it to? And then I will pull up in all of my paperwork. I'll find it in the bound book. Okay, that was transferred to a Joe M. Dirtbag on July 22nd of 2012. And then I send them a digital scanned copy of that 4473, because those 4473 forms are not supposed to be, they're not supposed to have pictures taken of them. They are not supposed to leave the premises of the FFL unless the FFL has his license taken from him or he voluntarily gives it up. In fact, before Comrade Biden's administration, it used to be after 20 years, all of the 4473s that you had, which is the background check form, could be destroyed after 20 years. You ever notice that a lot of your favorite gun shops don't make it to 20 years? 14 years seems to be about average for most gun shops to get shut down. Gee, I wonder why. So, but you hold on to the bound book, which has the inbound and outbound wherever that firearm went. And well, with me losing the license, all of that will go into the custody of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Fudgery. So, which is going to be interesting now that the Black and Tans have all of that wonderful information. Now, they swear that they are not digitizing any of these records. Even though when I had my compliance inspection, the agent went through and was taking pictures of a lot of pages of my bound book, which, if you remember the dust up of a year and a half ago, where it came out onto other conservative media like the Glenn Beck show, where there was an ATF agent that went through and took pictures of every last page of this dealer's bound book. Well, they're not supposed to do that. And then they claim, oh no, we're not doing anything with this. Or they'll say something like, oh no, we're taking a picture of your violations. You're not supposed to take a picture of anything. If there is an issue and we have done something wrong, you're supposed to manually write that down. You are not supposed to take a picture. But this woman spent 4 hours taking pictures of the pages of my book. And then they also claim that when we surrender our records, they're supposed to go into what they call cold storage. And the cold storage, much like the warehouse in the first Indiana Jones movie, there is all of the dealers who have gone out of business or given up their records or had their records seized from them, and they get put into cold storage. So whenever they start doing that, whenever they start doing a trace check on a firearm, they were like, oh, well, that dealer gave up his license, so it's going to be in box number 4,393,000, shelf 4. So they'll have to go down into the warehouse that has all this into box 4,393,000, shelf 4, and then pull up all of the records and see if they can find, okay, Joe M. Dirtbag, who was that sold to? And then they'll pull that up. But unfortunately, as of last year, during some of the panic that was going on during the summer, oddly enough, it was sponsored and co-sponsored by Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi, where the Feinstein-Pelosi ATF Record Modernization Act, which fortunately never got out of committee because of wonderful people like the Ron Pauls and the Ted Cruzes of the world, like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Well, we're proposing that we'll digitize all of the records that the ATF has to make all of this go easier, so we'll be able to trace down the firearms if they're used in the commission of a crime. So what you're telling me is you're going to digitize all of the records of every person who's bought a firearm since 1983. Gee, I can't see that being used for nefarious purposes. Can you? So, but again, I mean, as with any good as with any good tyrant, you want to take away the populace's means of resistance, and well, that's probably why they think the AR-15 is so horrible. Even though there were more people killed with hammers last year than were killed with rifles, and I'm talking all rifles, from Mausers to flintlocks to AR-15s, there were less than 340 people that were killed with rifles last year, and then of those 340, half were either suicides or accidents. So, but for some odd reason, whenever you hear a politician call for gun control, that AR-15 comes up relatively quickly. And well, it's not a coincidence that they want to take away a rifle very similar to what a lot of people carried in the military. I mean, we've been carrying more or less a deviation of the same platform of rifle since the mid 60s. And a lot of people are familiar with it. It's a nice, handy, modular platform that a lot of people love. And it's very user friendly, but they want to take it away because they claim it's dangerous. Honestly, if my guns were dangerous, do you think I'd be here? No, no. People are dangerous. A gun is a tool.
And I mean, now it's never been more apparent that how dangerous it is to not have something to defend yourself. With what we saw happen in Israel and them coming and they were just sitting lame ducks because of the strict gun
Mm.
control that Israel had on those people were left defenseless. And I think that's hopefully waking up a lot of people. So to know that in the background, we don't hear about it a lot, but gun dealers like yourself are coming out and saying, like, I just started getting harassed and they're taking my records, and makes you wonder how much this is happening that we're not hearing about. In my mind, like, hearing your story, the motivation is very clear. They were just after the records, and if it took meaning trying to rationalize taking your license so that they could have access after they were taking their stupid pictures, which they weren't allowed to do, then that's what it was going to take. So, what does this mean for you going forward? Is there no recourse in situations like this? Uh, it just seems so like such
We've
a not only violation of
unfortunately,
your rights, but of the rights of every person that did business with you.
yeah, unfortunately, outside of going before a federal judge and tying this up for another year, because it is very hard to, when they're the ones making up the rules and changing the rules as they go along, it's really easy to break whatever rules they decide to make up this week. If anything, this ATF, according to a lot of old timers in the industry, including people from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the people that put on SHOT Show, which is a big multinational trade show that's held in Vegas every year, but they handle everything firearms. Even the old timers from the National Shooting Sports Foundation are saying the last time they've seen an ATF that was this bold, brazen, and lawless, they were busy burning religious zealots down in Texas. And Waco and Ruby Ridge gave them such a black eye that it reined them in. In fact, the ATF under Biden had the guy, Mr. Chipman, I believe was his last name, who was in charge of the Waco operation, was going to be Biden's nominee to be the head of the ATF. For this administration, which is frankly just kind of horrific, because after he was booted from the ATF, he worked for a gun control organization for the better portion of a decade. We are not dealing with honest people, and unfortunately, I mean, I got an FFL to be a gunsmith. That's what I wanted to do, and the only and yeah, I mean, how much of my life? I mean, do I? Because it's been, I mean, the business has more or less been pretty well trashed over the last year trying to fight this. I'm very happy to have a lawyer who's my business partner, who is a very, very good lawyer. But even he's looking at it going, it's like, you can't beat them at their own game, because they're changing the rules as they see fit and reinterpreting things, because you're not breaking any laws. You're breaking the rule they may have made up yesterday or may have been on the books
Yeah,
since the 20s to stop bootleggers. So you can't
yeah,
win. And like, I really don't want to be the next Randy Weaver anytime soon. And if you try
yeah.
to stand
I
up to these
understand.
people, they'll find something and a reason to make you be quiet, which is
Right.
why I'm here. So
Yeah.
don't want to be quiet,
Well,
and
I hope that
people need to know what's
people will
happening.
share. Yeah, I hope people will share this story like crazy because we're not hearing enough about this. And, tons, like you said, of gun dealers are just going out of business, and really hearing why, or the fact that there's the collection of this personal information being rounded up for, we can predict why. But I really do hope that people share this like crazy because I think it's such an important topic. And thank you, Bruce, for your bravery and sharing your story. We totally understand why you wanted to hide your identity in the first interview that we did while this was going on. But now that you're on the other side of it, still, understand wanting to, be a little bit afraid considering the history. But I hope people will share this like crazy because that is how we fight back. Because, like you said, they can change the rules, but we can share the information and we can start to, raise some awareness and maybe reach out to our representatives to rein this tyranny back in. But Bruce, I'm out of time. Thank you so much for coming back on with me. If you have any updates, feel free to reach back out.
Will do, ma'am. Thank you for having me on.